Hi, and welcome to What's New in Jenkins LTS. Today we're going to be talking about version 2.375.2. My name is Darren Pope. I'm a developer advocate with CloudBees. And on today's show, much like normal, we have Mark Waite. Mark, how are you doing? Whoops, you know what? I haven't added you. No, there you are. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Darren. How about you?
Good, good. So here we are. Happy holidays to everybody, by the way. On the back side, we did it before. Now we're doing it on the back end. If you're in the U.S., you have a holiday probably on Monday, maybe. A lot of people do. So here we are. Wait, is that possible? Does the U.S. actually have more holidays than anybody else?
No, but that's okay. Don't kid yourself. No.
Okay, all right. It just feels like it. They're just all grouped together.
Right.
Anyway, that's not why we're here today. Talking about 2.375.2.
Right. Let's talk about a new long-term support release.
New long-term support release. Okay, so just in case you've never been here with us before and you don't understand the concepts of Jenkins LTS and Jenkins Weekly, Mark is going to take us through what that means. So Mark, go for it.
All right. So Jenkins delivers a new weekly release once a week. It's pretty simple. Every week there's a cadence. However, every 4 weeks, a new long-term support release is delivered. 4 times a year, we choose a new baseline for that LTS release. So every 3 months, we choose a new baseline. That new version, 2.375 currently, is chosen as the baseline. And then 4 weeks later, after we release a .1, 4 weeks later, we release a .2. 4 weeks later, we release a .3. And on tough times, we might release a .4 if there is some surprise. So long-term support, easy way to manage less frequent updates. If you're on weekly, you need to update every week. If you're on LTS, you update about once a month.
And that's a key part too, that we've said before, we'll say it again since you just referenced it there. Weekly releases are supported for how long?
For 1 week.
This is not a trick question.
Right. This is, well, and that kind of obvious is really important, right? When we see someone who says, I'm running weekly version 1 year ago, part of our first knee-jerk reaction is you need to upgrade to current weekly because that's the thing that gets attention. That's the thing that gets security fixes. That's the place where the development happens. If you choose not to be on weekly, your other choice is to be on LTS, and then you need to update monthly.
Right. Well, whenever the new LTS comes out. Now,
right.
I will state, I did see a thread somewhere, I'm not going to reference where it was because it's easy to find, that somebody had upgraded to 2.375.2 and everything went sideways.
Oh.
This was, so when did .2 come out? Yesterday.
It did, yesterday,
right?
That's correct.
And this post I saw late last night, my time.
Huh.
So they did it within half a day.
Mm-hmm.
We try as a community to have as stable as a release as possible. And if it does blow up on you, that's not, let's say it's not normal, but it's also not unheard of either, right? Things can happen that we just missed something.
Right.
But I would still have, even if it's just a little box sitting under your desk to where you can just upgrade on top of it, right? Did just the little basic things work before you go to your production server and actually upgrade? I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even if you don't have a full-blown test suite around it, just check it out. Don't trust but verify. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to.
Well, having a definition of some limited smoke test, something that you can do easily to say, does this pass the rudimentary things, is healthy. It's good. And it's a good excuse if you don't already have one of those to consider creating one of those and use configuration as code to represent it. Then you just use the configuration as code and now your configuration looks surprisingly close to your production instance.
That's not why we're here again today either. But we could talk about that. That's actually something we should do, is how to set up an environment to validate a new LTS release using configuration as code. Right. Just
well,
as a quick, simple way to do things.
Which are the things that you would want to do? Which are the things you have to admit can't test that in a prototype? Yeah. Some things really just don't work well prototyping, and so it'd be a fun discussion. I'm sure we'll do it.
But a lot of things do work fine as prototype.
They do.
I'm going to say surprisingly sometimes.
Yep.
Okay. Let's get into the news. Now, so there's not a whole lot of... Wait, why is that not working? Oh, I had everything set up and now it's not set up right. Okay. So in case you've never downloaded Jenkins, or if you've downloaded Jenkins, you just know to go to jenkins.io, go to download, and then you're going to see both the stable version on the left and the weekly on the right. We're focusing on stable today. So the changelog is 5, count them, 5 items.
Right.
That's nice.
And that's not uncommon for a .2 release in an LTS cycle. .1 will have lots of changes because it's bringing in from the previous, it's deltaed from the previous baseline, so it will have 12 or 13 weeklies bundled in it. .2 only has the things that we've had to backport from later discoveries, later issues detected that say, okay, this needs to be on the base of .1.
Speaking of backports, let's look at this second and third. Okay, before we get into it, the fourth and fifth, updated bundled script security plugin, great, no big deal. Fixed console view bouncing, very interesting, but again, minor bugs. It's these two around WebSocket that were like, wow.
Right. So if you're a WebSocket user, this is a good thing to have. And the story around WebSocket, okay, so what is WebSocket first, right? WebSocket is a way of implementing a what do you call it, a stateful protocol over HTTP, where HTTP is typically stateless, right? So what we're doing with WebSocket is we use it to connect agents to Jenkins controllers, and that's very stateful. That's very much a state kind of thing. That WebSocket implementation had some issues.
And that was it.
Well, and
Well,
it's fun to talk to the, hey, what's going on there and why, right? And what are the subtleties of this thing, right? That wait 10 seconds on reconnect of a WebSocket agent. It's like, oh yeah, there are some complications around network startup and network teardown and things that are useful, interesting. The reality is, if you're using agents with WebSockets, 2.375.2 is a good choice for you.
Correct. And if you were to take a look at the pull request that's sitting behind the big red, notice there's both of these are big red versus the bottom two are little red. So these were considered to be, if you look at the legend, major bug fixes.
Right.
So if you're if you're not using WebSocket agents today, okay, this isn't going to affect you at all. If you're still using the old, what is the proper way to say it? JNL or inbound agent is
inbound
the
agents,
current,
right?
Is the current phrasing.
I am an inbound agent user. And so for me, and ci.jenkins.io is an inbound agent user with its hundreds of agents that it runs. And so likely unaffected here because it didn't have WebSocket enabled as far as I know. I know mine does not. Right. But WebSocket is very helpful in environments where opening another network port is a real pain.
Correct.
You've got the HTTP port, it has to be open because somebody's got to talk to Jenkins. And the WebSocket being over HTTP means I didn't have to open one more network port. And there are environments where that is really a pain to do.
Yep. To clarify, inbound agent applies, even though we're using it generically, what Mark was saying was he is using inbound agent from a TCP perspective, whereas WebSocket is an implementation specific detail for WebSockets or is an inbound. How do I say this? Inbound agent applies to both TCP and to WebSocket.
Right.
So
that's an excellent clarification. You're right. So the fact that I'm using an inbound agent, so is everyone who does WebSocket, right? They're also using an inbound agent. The difference is which port is being used for that communication. And in my case, I have to declare a dedicated port, open that port, and be sure it's available for any inbound agent that wants to talk to it.
Right.
In the case of HTTP or in the case of WebSocket, all I have to do is acknowledge that I'm reusing the same port that I was already using for HTTP anyway.
It's a transport implementation detail. That's what I was trying to get to.
Right, exactly.
I take off holidays and I forget all the words. Okay. I want to go into this add telemetry
Okay.
because the Jenkins project has telemetry. If you go out to stats.jenkins.io, there's data that you can look at. Anybody can look at it. In fact, why don't we pull it up real quick because
Well,
we can.
And it's not just stats. So stats is certainly one fun place, but this gives us an entry point into, for instance, I am deeply, as a plugin maintainer, I am deeply attached to one of the data points that's in there. So
Okay, let's
this
do that.
one-
Let's go to your plugin version, right? Is that what
Exactly.
you want?
Plugin
Okay.
versions by Jenkins version, and let's pick. You want to pick a big one or a little one?
Which one do you? Why don't we do a little one? Well,
Okay, let's do a little one.
little one first. Yeah.
It's a favorite of mine that is very small. So let's go choose it.
Okay. What was the name again? You dropped out.
Platform. Look
Platform.
for the word
Sorry.
platform.
If I drop out, you just keep talking, and I'll be back.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah. Platform labeler.
Labeler. There it is.
There it is. So open that one.
Okay.
So this, for me as a Jenkins plugin maintainer, is crucial information. What we see here is a picture that shows me which versions of Jenkins are using which versions of my plugin. So if you'll scroll all the way to the right and all the way to the bottom, what we see here is along the top edge is the version number of the plugin. On the right-hand side is the sum of all installations of that Jenkins version that are using that plugin. So if you were to scroll back to the left, you'd see the left-hand column starts with 1 dot something and goes all the way to 2 dot, in this case, 384.
Right.
So what this tells me as a plugin maintainer is how the distributions of versions are done in the installed base for Jenkins. And this is thanks to telemetry.
Right. So I want to take us into this telemetry. So this one was added for distributed builds.
Right.
Now, distributed builds, we could talk for hours about that. It's actually not that interesting, but we could talk about it for hours. But what is interesting here is how this runs. This project, or this specific telemetry item, is only good for basically 2 months, 3 months. It went into service December 1st of 2022, and it's going to end-ish March 1st of 2023. The reason why I'm saying ish is when did it start up? How did it, but it's still March 1st. So this, unlike the plugins, the data is not going to be collected forever. This is a short run just to see, okay, what does this look like? Because I'm assuming, because I haven't talked to the person that added it in, I'm assuming this is, okay, let's see what we get. And then we'll take that and decide, okay, do we extend this? Do we change it to get, just what are we seeing, period?
Right.
Is that a safe way to say this?
The goal of telemetry, and it's even in the mentioned in the pull request description, the goal of the telemetry is to help the development team specifically answer questions about how people are using Jenkins. And one of the things we allow ourselves is time-limited gathering of additional data. And that's what this telemetry is doing, is gathering additional data so that we can understand what users are doing with it.
Correct. Okay. But if we go back and take a look at this, that's it. That was
That
all
is
that's in
it.
this release, and which is
Yeah.
good. That's what you want.
Now that bouncing that console view bouncing was a pretty common complaint actually. It's a usability problem. Nothing that you and I need to show. It's just a matter that, hey, the usability is better because when I'm sitting watching the console stream to me, the page is much better presented now than it was before.
Speaking of much better, this blog post just released as we're doing this live about 2 or 3 hours ago.
Correct. Right.
This is the 2022 recap for the Jenkins project. Can I say I've been around the Jenkins community now for a long time. I'm just thinking really like when I went hardcore would have been 2012. Like that would have been like nothing. Well, there's been other things. I will say I have cheated a few times. but Jenkins is my primary. And I don't think I can think of a year to where there's been this much, other than the big jump from 1 to 2.
I agree with you. I'm not even sure the big jump from 1 to 2 was as big as 2022 has been.
No, I agree with that because, well, I'm just saying, just because that was a major, right?
Yes.
And that's been the only
Right.
major that's ever happened
Correct.
in the history of the project. So, board members, new officers, who cares about that? Let's get into the stuff that matters. Java 11 replaced Java 8.
Right. Major change, right? Very, very important change. And part of that story that Java 8, well, I just learned a few days ago that the next release of Debian Bookworm, what will be Debian 12, won't even deliver Java 11. So other parts of the world are moving along from Java. It's not just that Jenkins is moving along, but others are as well. So fascinating that it's a good thing we got onto Java 11. We're very healthy that way.
I was chatting with someone yesterday. They're just now upgrading to Java 8.
Right, and that's part of the game, right? Some systems are more legacy than others, and they have to stay on what they can stay where they can stay.
Now, Java 17 is now supported, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. So I was looking also yesterday at when does Java 11 fall out of active support? Do you know when it is?
I don't remember. I thought it was early 2024.
It would be nice. September of this year.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So
Right. Now, it's got long term, right? There's security and stuff that goes on until 2030, right? Which is fine, but the active stops in September.
Right, which means you can probably predict that Java 17 transition is coming for the Jenkins project as well in the future. Yep.
Correct. Lots of security fixes and updates to the security processes. One of those was the new, if you're a plugin maintainer, you can opt in. I believe it's still opt in, right?
It is.
I couldn't remember if it was forced yet or not, but you can opt in to have your repos scanned for security issues.
Correct.
I believe I said that correctly.
You did, yeah. The security team created rules that know about Jenkins' common mistakes in security and will flag those for you as a plugin maintainer and place them privately in your repository. So it's nice in that it will worry about them, it does the analysis, and after the analysis, post them to your plugin so that you can then review them and decide, is this a false positive or no? Do I need to take some action on this?
Next up was documentation. It just says pipeline documentation. It was documentation across the board.
Yeah, although, okay, the one that was most dramatic for me was really the pipeline documentation because Vihan Thora in Google Summer of Code 2022 did what for me was a breathtaking improvement to the pipeline documentation navigation. I used to have to do all sorts of horrible things to find the documentation for the checkout step. He made it so I can just search. I type the word checkout, there it is, one click and I'm done.
Yep. And again, Google Summer of Code 2023 is just now starting up.
That's
And in fact, I believe Jean-Marc was doing a session today.
He was meeting with the org admins today, getting ready. They did a webinar in December. They'll do another webinar end of this month. Yep, the Jenkins project is looking forward to Google Summer of Code.
Now, each of these items are called out in greater detail throughout all this. But I want to go back to the very first item. Well, the second item. The first item that matters. The UI was modernized with new themes, icons, menus, forms, and buttons. Follow along with me, if you will. Here we have a wonderful looking Jenkins controller from Never Save. I should have done this at least once. Sorry. Follow along with me, if you will, to the beginning of 2022. We see color. We see icons that look like from the 90s. Sorry, everybody. They do. We see big blocks. We see big tables. Now, let's go to just alone with this, right? This is already a little bit cleaner. Not tremendously, but a little bit cleaner. Now we log in. Yes, I know. Never save. Okay. People at Mozilla, let's talk about Firefox. Small thing. Nothing bad, though. Now look at this, right? A lot cleaner, right? All those icons have now gone away.
Yep.
Do you want to feel some pain? Are you ready for some pain? It's Monday, right? We can feel pain. Oh, wait, no, it's Thursday. Manage Jenkins. Okay. Again, this is 319.3, so it's a year old. Lots of warnings.
Right. So all that red, each of those red items, and I assume all you installed here was the default set of plugins.
Default. Yep.
Right.
Just
So
defaults.
you chose through the setup wizard to install the defaults, and what it tells you is in the last 12 months, even amongst those defaults, there were core vulnerabilities fixed. That's the first line item. There were vulnerabilities fixed in 5 other plugins. Now, if you scroll up a little, Darren, there's even one that hints, go a little up at the very top. The installed plugin that's been deprecated, there was an important change there to separate a plugin into 2 plugins. And all that in this 12-month period.
But wait, there's more. Remember this? If you're still running before 375, you definitely remember this because it's what you still have, right? This is just miserable, right? We don't want to deal with this. Let's go take a look at 375. Manage Jenkins. Ooh, much nicer.
Right? Simpler layout, much better. And now,
I will have to say, I'm still getting used to this being on the side.
right, of
I'm
course.
I'm just stating.
Well, and what you're saying is you have muscle memory, just like all of us, and the muscle memory has been conditioned in you for years of muscle memory. That's perfectly fair.
Yep. So available plugins, install plugins. So I don't have the tab across the top. So it actually gives me a little bit more room to play.
Right.
And in fact, if I do this, it's a lot more responsive than, well, it's supposed to be. There we go. Yeah, it was about the same.
No, I mean,
But the tabs,
right.
go away. So anyway, what else could we show that was like the big stuff?
Well, so for me, there were changes in configuration forms. There was the theming change, right? So if you
Yep.
if you define a new job, or if you configure system is probably already a good choice. Let's go there.
We'll go to the original first, just so we can feel a little more pain. Pain isn't bad. Pain just tells you that there's something there that needs to be dealt with.
Right, right. It's just biological help.
There's that, right?
Right. So notice the layout. All right, we've got
Just
things as
just-
they are.
as they are, or as they were. Now, notice we don't have anything here on the left nav anymore.
Right.
All of this is now gone.
Mhm.
Was it adding value at all? No.
To manage system, no, it was not actually. That's the sad thing is, okay, it was there and not helping.
So now it's about the same. A little bit easier to understand.
Right.
But this just keeps on getting better, as you'll see in the next big LTS coming out.
Right, because the weekly now has search on this page. Right.
Correct.
So just like I'm used to searching on my Android phone for the particular setting or on Google Chrome for the particular setting by describing it in the search field, Weekly's got a search field for this now.
Speaking of search, we've always had search, if you're just looking up in the upper right-hand corner. But now we have a keyboard shortcut, which we did not have before.
Correct.
So if I click into it, which you can't see my mouse, but if I was to do my Command K, actually it goes there, it's still a weird capture problem sometimes,
Right.
which is, and I've got plugins in my browser. So anyway, anything else we want to show with this? I don't have any jobs set up. I probably should have set a couple of jobs up, but
Well, actually, let's create a new job and do
okay.
the game, because there's a fun piece.
you want to do a pipeline or a freestyle? I can't believe I just asked that question.
Let's make a pipeline, of course.
Okay, thank you. It's the right answer, by the way.
Great.
Okay, so
Okay, just pause already there.
Yep.
Already there.
let's stop here. Let's go over here and let's do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Just one step. not Unity, I want to do test. Pipeline.
Right.
So the tab metaphor is now gone.
Right. It's now
It's
moved
now
to
left
the
nav.
side panel on the left. That's correct.
Enabling finally is up at the top.
Where was it before? This is showing my pathetic recollection. Is it all the way at the bottom of the page?
It's actually not even on the page.
Oh, okay.
Not for pipeline.
Got it.
So anyway, there's that. But otherwise, the fill in the blanks are still the same.
Sure.
It's with natural cleanup.
The buttons have been improved. There are all sorts of nice smoothing and polishing there, but ultimately, yeah.
Right. So now here's our 319, and here's the same thing in our 375.
Right.
Colors did come back, which is interesting because there's now this thing that's moving through where everything went monochrome, and now we're going back to a little bit of color.
Well, and the color we're going back to is still dark theme compatible, right? One of the challenges with the old color was that it wasn't really workable for those of us who have made the switch to dark theme. And as I'm using more and more dark mode, I find it really comfortable, but then it's glaring when I get into an application that doesn't support dark.
I agree. Was there anything else we needed to show here? I don't think. Actually, let me run it once because I didn't make any changes, so yeah, it should run. All right, so let's go back here to 319. It should run because I didn't make anything odd. So, whatever, right?
Right?
And then we look here, and pretty much the same, right? Just a little bit more breathing room,
Right.
not as cramped. But
Yeah, the icons, I like the new icons. I find the animation, the visibility of them a little more pleasant. But yeah.
okay. So that's not just Jenkins in 2022, but go read the blog post.
Right.
I'll make sure I link to the blog post down in the description of the video after we're done, which I forgot to do because it literally just came out a couple hours ago.
Right.
And
Well, and hey, there's some really cool things hiding in this blog post, like a hyperlink to Tim Jacome and Jan Farachik's demonstration that they did at DevOps World 2022 of where they think the future of the Jenkins UI will be going.
Not a guarantee,
No,
but where they think.
it's right. It's this
Because
is
people have
their,
asked me about that because they've seen it. It's like, oh wait, is that what's going to happen? I went,
right.
No, it's not a guarantee that it's going to happen, but this is an idea.
It's exactly. It's an idea from two very important players in Jenkins UI improvements.
Yep. Okay. So with that being said, I think we're done.
I think
Right.
we are. Thanks, Darren.
So we'll be back in 4 weeks. I think the next release date is the 8th, if I remember, ish. That sounds right.
yeah,
of February.
4 weeks from yesterday, so 8th of February is correct.
Okay. So we'll be back sometime on the 9th. Normally we try to do this 4:30 Eastern time slot, but I have another meeting that day, so it'll shift around at some point that day. So anyway, thanks for being here with us live. If you've been live, if you are with us live, go ahead and give us a thumbs up before you leave. Do the YouTube things. And we will talk to you again in roughly 4 weeks. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a
Darren.
great rest of your week. Thanks, Mark.